everyone, here's another Comic Clerks video, and I'm here to talk to you about Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Among Us Hide, and I finally caught up, you guys, so let's get to this review. So with this episode, they're wheeling Gardner on a stretcher. Doesn't look like he's dead yet, you guys. All that blood was just for show. So May asks him what happened. He tells her, that his student Alex cornered him in the store and two other men. And Coulson says, it was Hydra. And Gardner wonders why they were after him. And May says she knows why. And Coulson, he tells her that it's not her fault. And she asks Gardner how he survived. And he says, that it was Phil. He had a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent telling them, that he barely made it to the door when he was caught in the blast. And all he knew after that, was that S.H.I.E.L.D. was picking him up, saying, he was lucky, and he doesn't know how he survived. So we see May head out, she's going after Alex, so he doesn't finish the job. So she runs into Hunter, and they have an argument, which Coulson has to break them up, and he takes Hunter off the Ward case. And May tells him, since he's off the case, put her on it. And he asks her, is she back? And she says, yes, she's back. So finally, May's back. No more. It's about time she's back. About time. It's kind of getting a little boring without her. So with Ward, he's upset that Kibo brought Hunter straight to him. And Kibo tells him, that he followed his protocol straight to the T. It was his protocol that led Hunter to him. And Hunter hated him that much, he killed a man to get close to him. So, Ward tells him, they all hate him that much. And tells them, that they gotta go after Alex before S.H.I.E.L.D. catches him. And if he's still alive, take care of him. So with S.H.I.E.L.D., Coulson asks Daisy if she's okay. And she tells him, that she's pissed off. She got tossed around by Lash and didn't get to see the ATCU facility. And she has a theory that Lash is an ATCU agent. He knew where they would be, and he had to be tracking them somehow. And since he can transform back and forth, it'd be easy for him to be one of them. So Coulson tells her that he has a meeting with Rosalind today to see the ATCU facility and tell Daisy that whatever she's digging into, keep it off Rosalind's radar. So Daisy asking him, is he getting too attached to Rosalind? And Coulson tells her, when you've been doing that job for that long, you know how to turn your feelings on and off. So she asks him if May is back for good, and he tells her, he doesn't know right now. She's pretty much out for blood. So this is when we cut to May, and she attacks Bobby, telling her, it's her fault for Hunter going after Ward, and that can she not fight her own battles. And Bobby says she feels guilty, but she would have never put Andrew in danger. They start fighting, and Bobby, takes her down. And, May was just testing her, you guys, and seeing if she was mission ready. So Bobby says Coulson, still has her off duty because, her lung hasn't healed all the way. And May tells her what she saw. She looks just fine to her. And Will's up in 20. So on their way to the plane, they run into Hunter. And May tells her, to stay away from this mission or she'll make him stay away. And this is when Hunter, tries to talk to Bobby. And Bobby tells him, that she knows he meant well, just not everyone is used to his behavior like she is. And they say their goodbyes, when Hunter tells her to do a lot better than he did. So on the plane, May is going over the details of Gardner's story and tells Bobby, his student was Von Strucker's son, and that's who they're going after. And it looks like one of Strucker's, old Hydra's account has been activated. So that's where they're headed first. So with Alex, he's talking to a guy who worked for his father, a partner, Gideon Malik. And he tells him, that he didn't finish the mission and that Ward is after him. And Malik tells him, that you don't put untested youth into the field, and his father would have never tolerated such things. And Alex tells him, he doesn't know Ward, he's scary. And Malik tells him that he knows all about Ward. He was untested youth also, and he'll handle him. So we get back with Coulson, and he's being picked up by Rosalind, who is upset for having to pick him up at the corner because he won't tell her where their base is. And Coulson tells her, he does run a spy agency, and she tells him, they're supposed to be sharing information. This is when Rosalind gets a call, and supposedly it's an emergency, and tries to reschedule with Coulson. But he tells her, that he's going to see the facility today. He'll go with her to her emergency, and that's that. So she tells her, he's not going. He tells her, wasn't she just upset about not sharing information? So she kind of concedes, and she tells the driver to take her home. So back at the SHIELD facility, Fitz is going over the portal readings while working on IDs for Bobby and May with Hunter over his shoulder. And Hunter just wants to help. He's been put on the bench, and he's feeling a little antsy, you guys. So he puts his info in on Will, that you don't help the ex, get to your girlfriend. And Fitz tells Hunter, that Will helped keep Simmons alive for months, and he has to help him. Fitz asks them, why he's even there. And like I said, he's been benched, he's being antsy. So Hunter looks at the IDs Fitz is making, and, he tries to mess around with him. And Fitz kicks him out pretty much. So we get to Daisy, and, she finds Gardner and asks him for a consult. And she asks him about Lash and why did he spare her, because all he does is kill Inhumans. And he tells her, that's a tough one, and that all Inhumans are all different. And she tells him about Lash changing back into a normal person. And he tells her, maybe Lincoln can help. And she tells him, he calls every now and then. And this is when Mac, interrupts and calls her Tremors. I thought that was kind of cool. And that they need her. So Mac tells Daisy, he's been going over her ATCU theory. And the route they were going on was known by one guy, who took off before they left. And that was Banks. So they're about to head out when Hunter says, he'll drives, and then he asks please. So with May and Bobby, they're trying to access the safe deposit box. And they get inside, this is when they set off all their alarms. So they get locked inside and are surrounded by 3 guys. And Bobby tries to talk them down, but one of the guys, jumps the gun and, May's on it, and they take him out with the quickness. So we get back to know Daisy and Mac and Hunter, and they're waiting on Banks, and they're upset about Andrew almost dying, and, they're giving Hunter crap about it. This is when finally Banks shows up, and, they start tailing him. So we get back to Coulson and Rosalind, and it looks like her place was robbed, and Coulson takes a look around, and he picks up a bat, and she tells him not to touch her stuff. And he asks, was anything taken? And she makes fun about him, not listening in and what's up with his spy skills. So we get back with the group telling Banks, and they're wondering what their next move is going to be. This is when Hunter, suggests, that... This is when Hunter, he just gets out of the van and shoots him. So he drags Banks back into the surveillance truck, and they're yelling at him, telling him Coulson is with Rosalind today, and Banks is her number 2. And he tells them, that all he did was ice him, and if they test his DNA for inhuman markers, then they can find out if he's Lash or not. So they all admit that it's a pretty good idea. And Daisy tells him, that he needs to work on his anger issues. And Mac tells him, they don't have a med lab, and they have no way of drawing his blood. So Hunter hits Bank right in the face and admits, maybe he does need to work on his anger issues. After, you just punch somebody, after you just shot somebody, then punch somebody in the face. You need to work on your anger issues. All right, Hunter. Good job, man. So with Simmons, she's giving Gardner one of his lines, putting back on that psych thing that he likes to do to everybody. This is when she gets the call, Daisy's on the other line and she wants to send a blood sample to Simmons for her to run, see if, Banks is an Inhuman or not. So while the team is looking to Banks stuff, his phone beeps, gives a location on where he should be. So this is when they're going to check it out and wondering what they should do with Banks. And if Banks is lashed, Mac doesn't want to be in a moving vehicle with him again. So they stash him in his car. So with Coulson and Rosalind, she's bringing him food from DJ's. And he asks her, why her computer wasn't taken, none of her TVs, some of her art pieces weren't taken, and tells her, it's really unusual for no one to take anything in a robbery. He tells her, he thinks she's working him by gaining his sympathy for her getting robbed and bringing him food, from one of his favorite restaurants. She then comes back, with her home being broken into on the same day she was supposed to be out with him. And Coulson tells him this is all to keep him from seeing the facility. She then finally caves, and takes Coulson to the facility. So with Fitch, he's giving Bobby and May the location for Alex. And May gives, Bobby, a pep talk to be ready for the mission. Don't hold back. She was a great recruit when she saw her back in the academy. And she's got even more better now. She's not a recruit anymore. And to do what she did with Ward, that shows some real promise right there. So with Ward, he gets the call from Alec, and it seems like, he's giving Ward Alex as a good faith gift, and he doesn't want she'll get into him first neither. So we get back to the team, and, they're at the facility and are using the new Dwarf 2.0 that Daisy stole from Fitz to look inside the facility. This is when Simmons calls, and it looks like Banks isn't an Inhuman and is not lashed, pretty much. So Simmons hangs up, and she's talking to Fitz about the portal, and he shows her, all the simulation that he has run, and none of them work, and he tells her, that they're not giving up on bringing Will back, and Simmons apologized, for putting him into this awkward situation, and that he knew Will, that he know why they have to save him. And it looks like Fitz has been researching Will also, getting his own little feel for him. So we get back to the team, they're not seeing anything, but there's got to be something there since of the ATCU cover. So Daisy sends the dwarf in the building, and Mac warns her, that they may see the dwarf. And Daisy says, that's why it's 2.0. And it cloaks itself. And Max says, that Fitz shouldn't be hiding this. So with the dwarf, the team sees them, unpacking a box with a person in a tank. And it looks like they're storing Inhumans. And this is when Daisy adjusts the camera and see Rosalind and Coulson. And Daisy is upset that Coulson doesn't look like he's freaking out. And Mac tells her, he's just playing the part. He's sure that he's enraged. And tells her to bring the dwarf back. So with Coulson, he's asking Rosalind, what were they holding him in? And she tells him, that it's a suspicion gel that keeps them in stasis. And she admits to him, that she didn't want to show him the facility. And she tells him, that they're working on a cure to cure the people that are there. And Coulson figures out, that she lost someone. And we find out that her husband died of cancer. And we find out, that's what motivates her, that she could have put her husband in the stasis until a cure was found, and then she would have. So that's what she's doing for the Inhumans, pretty much. So we cut to a scene, and we see Alex being tortured by Kibo. And that's when Bobby and May show up, and Kibo stabs Alex one more time and makes his escape. Bobby pursues him while May takes on the Hydra agents inside. May tries to get information out of Alex before he dies. So Bobby is out there fighting Kibo, and they get thrown into a pool where Kibo tries to drown her. She gets out of his grip and gets out of the pool and uses her batons to send a current through the pool electrocuting Kibo. So when May and Alex, he's telling May about his mission and tells her, how did he change into that thing? And she asks him what really happened. And we see everything happen close to what Gardner said. But he left out turning into Lash and taking out the Hydra agents himself. He also set the fire himself. So May tells Alex, that can't be true. And Alex asks her, what is he? And May says she doesn't know. So now we kind of see why, Andrew, he left her, when they went off together, because he was changing into Lash. That's the reason he was, he had to leave, because he was changing into a monster and didn't want her to be involved. So I guess now we kind of get it why they kind of broke up. He couldn't tell her because he was changing into a monster. So at the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, at the S.H.I.E.L.D. hideout, we see Daisy talking to Lincoln, and she tells him, to keep, his head down so Lash can't find him. And we see Gardner was listening on the conversation and asks where Lincoln is. He'll be safer there at S.H.I.E.L.D. And Daisy says she keeps telling him that, but he won't listen. And she tells him, when he does decide to come in, she'll let him know. Gardner is not happy about this and walks away. So that's the end of this episode. This episode was way better than that Hours episode. Thank God they brought it this episode. Finally, we know who Lash is. Tell me what you liked about this episode and what you didn't like about this episode, you guys. Leave it in the comments. Alright, thanks you guys for watching. See ya.